Okay, so I'll tell you the piece we're going to do may take 2 weeks now, but it's worthwhile. This is another side of Reb Yaakov that I knew about, but not a lot of people know about it. Okay, this is a side that Reb Yaakov used to call it Chochmas Yisrael. He doesn't, even though you can make a Birchas Torah on it, but it's more like Chochmas Yisrael than Torah Yisrael. Okay, now as soon as I start reading it, you'll realize what I mean. Okay, and as we go on, I'll tell you different people that Reb Yaakov came in contact with. I'm not sure if anyone influenced Reb Yaakov in this area or it was himself, but I know one person that Reb Yaakov used to say, I used to talk to this person about Chochmas Yisrael. Okay, we'll talk about him because he appears in this week's, in the writings of this week. So it says like this, it's a strange pasuk in Sefer Shmuel, and Chazal drash from this pasuk. I think there's no other way of looking at this pasuk. David HaMelech is trying to escape Shaul, and finally, a few times, Shaul was sleeping, and David could have taken advantage of it and killed him, but he didn't. And David HaMelech says, let me just get the Tanach, chapter Chavav Pasuk Yutes. Okay, David says, "V'ato yishma no Adoni HaMelech eis divrei avdo," and he's talking to Shaul. From far away, and he says, "Let my master the king hear the words of his servant. Im Hashem eisischa bi yorach mincha. If God has enticed you to go after me and try to kill me, then, of course, there's no problem. Yorach mincha. V'im b'nei adam arurim hey lifnei Hashem. And if there's people who enticed you to go after me, not God, then they should be cursed before God. Ki gershuni hayom mistapech menachalas Hashem le'molech avod Elohim acherim. Because you have chased me out from the word means like from being dovuk, from being like connected, but nachalas Hashem, saying, go serve other gods. Okay? It's a strange pasuk. David says, because you have chased me today, right? Chased me out, and I can't be connected with the nachalas Hashem, which is Eretz Yisrael, saying, go serve other idols. So, of course, the Gemara asks in Ksuvos, what do you mean? The Shaul didn't tell him to go serve idols. So the Gemara deduces from here, Kol hayotzim Eretz Yisrael, right? Kilu oved avodah zarah, right? If the Gemara says that a person leaves Eretz Yisrael from this pasuk, because it says in the pasuk, you're telling me to go serve other gods. What the Medrash means is a good question, right? What does it exactly mean? There's different Mefarshim who say pshat, but clear from the Gemara that if you leave Eretz Yisrael, actually it doesn't say if you live in Chutz La'aretz. There's another Gemara that talks about that, but this Gemara says in Ksuvos that if you leave Eretz Yisrael, it's if you serve avodah zarah. Now he brings the Rashi here. Hayotzim Eretz Yisrael l'chutz la'aretz bizman habayis kilu over avodah zarah. One who goes out of Eretz Yisrael bizman habayis, and that's in I have the Lublin edition. Okay, the Lublin edition, such as has Yiddish on the bottom. Okay, and then eventually they replaced the Yiddish when no one knew how to speak Yiddish anymore, right, with the Malbim on the bottom. But this is what we call the Lublin edition. I don't know if you could see it, but 1 second. Let's see if we could. It doesn't get clear. I don't know why. If I leave it there for a minute. But, it's on top. Here it is. Oh, it went out again. Okay. But that's the Lublin edition is on top is the text and the bottom are the Mefarshim. And all the way on the bottom, they left space for the Yiddish. So mine, of course, is falling apart because you could imagine when it was bought, probably about 60 years ago, I bought it or something. So it's falling apart. But in the Rashi, it says, Hayotzim Eretz Yisrael b'zman habayit, right? Ki'ilu over avodah zarah. Okay. Now, the Reb Yaakov says, Hosafas hatzenzura he tevas bisman habayit. It's an addition of this of the what's he called, the fellow in English? The censor, the one who censors things, right?
Yeah.
Hosafas censura he tevas bisman habayit. The word bisman habayit. Sure, but Gemara lo chilek umuchrach sham b'Gemara ksuvas shenoag zel olam. Not only bisman habayit, it's noag olam. So I want to tell you where Reb Yaakov got the question from. He got it from me. I asked him this question, right? And he knew the answer right away. But I asked him the question, why? I asked Reb David Cohen the question, why? Reb David Cohen in America, that very big posek, today's 94 already. But when I asked him the question, it was probably about close to 50 years ago. So he was in his 40s. He learned next to me in the bench behind me. He used to learn with guys. I used to charge a nice amount of money to learn privately with people. And that's how he made his living. He learned privately with people. And also he spoke publicly, but mostly he made his living from this. So he used to sit behind. He always sat with a yellow pad and questions he used to write down. So I turned around. I said, Reb David, I'm learning Sefer Shmuel right now. And it doesn't make any sense because it says, right? Makes no sense because David didn't live Bisman habayit. So what do you mean? Bisman habayit, right? So he tried to kvetch at the time that, it doesn't say at the time of the building of the bayit. It says Zman habayit. This was the Zman habayit, right? He tried to kvetch it. So I didn't like it. I told him I don't like it because Zman habayit sounds like that the base of Mikdash is here already, not like Zman b'tkufas habayit. So he understood that it wasn't a great answer. And he started talking to me about Shiloh, because Shiloh wasn't there anymore. So I said, you can't say even Bisman habayit for Shiloh. Shiloh wasn't there. We had discussions. Reb David Cohen eventually published 8 different volumes on Nach. In other words, every time he finished Nach, he wrote up his ha'oros. He used to write as he's learning. And he used to learn at the breakfast table. That's what I think he writes in the Agdama. Right. And then so there's about 8 volumes, but there's separate 8 volumes on whole Tanakh. He never put together as one volume. But if I remember correctly, I once saw a volume where he writes that, like Reb Yaakov, that he realized that it was the censored, so either self-censored or someone else censored it. Now, when I asked Reb Yaakov, that's what he said right away. Okay. That's what it was. Okay. Now, I don't know why nobody speaks about it, and asks the question. It's not Bisman habayit, but that's the question I asked Reb David Cohen. Okay, so Reb Yaakov says that it's censored. Now, Reb Yaakov knew it also because there's a lot of places where you'll see in the Medrash it adds Bisman habayit for different things. Bisman habayit, right? So what's the pshat? Now, here I have a difference of opinion. Reb Yaakov didn't tell me why they would add it, or I don't remember what he said. But I thought that it was added because if the Jews have to live in Eretz Yisrael all the time, they were afraid that the Christians and Muslims would be upset. So they wrote Bisman habayit. Therefore, today we don't have to live in Eretz Yisrael. Okay? That's the way I understood it. I think Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky, one second. Let me just see. By the way, he brings Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach in Minchas Shlomo Tinyana, Siman Kuf, says the Hosa Meimas Censura. In other words, we self-censored it because we were afraid. Now, I don't remember. Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky has a long Ha'ara on this, a gigantic Ha'ara. I don't remember if he says, I think there's a place where he says something in the name of Reb Yaakov that something different than what I just said about, why they self-censored it. I think Reb Yaakov said like this, that at least that's what Reb Yosef writes, that um, leaving Eretz Yisrael, they didn't want to say Ki'ilu Oved Avodah Zarah because the Goyim don't live in Eretz Yisrael and they don't think they're serving Avodah Zarah. They think they're serving their God, right? Jesus and God, the Holy Ghost, whatever it is, right? So Reb Yaakov said, you're going to insult them by not putting in Bizman Abayit. Yitzchak Eretz Yisrael looks like, Ki'ilu Oved Avodah Zarah, so we're all being Oved Avodah Zarah, So that's why they put in Bizman Abayit. So in the time of when the Catholics were ruling, so to speak, they wouldn't be upset. I didn't learn like that. I remember after Reb Yaakov told me, I went home, I thought about why they would censor it. And I think they censored it because of the fact that the non-Jews, like there were crusades, and the crusades, wanted, to get part of Eretz Yisrael. And if the Jewish people would not be permitted to leave Eretz Yisrael, that would be threatening to them. But in any event, okay, that's what he says. Now, next page. Now, I just want to tell you, Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky records it, but I found that I went back to Reb Yaakov that the Satmar Rebbe uses this Rashi as a proof that you don't have to live in Eretz Yisrael today. So Reb Yaakov started to laugh. Then Jonathan's already laughing, right? Reb Yaakov said exactly what Jonathan is thinking. In other words, the Satmar Rebbe took something that we censored and he used it against us, So Reb Yaakov started laughing. It's a censor. It's not really, it should be there, right? So in other words, the Satmar Rebbe is using the censor as a proof that you don't have to live in Eretz Yisrael today, which is ironic and absurd. In any event, so Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky does quote it. In any event, he quotes the quote, the Yoel Moshe, Sholosh Shavuos. This is one of his proofs. Anyway, the truth is that, certain people didn't chap that it was really a censor. So in the newer editions, it's not there. Okay. I have the what do you call it? The edition known as the Lublin and the Warsaw edition. And again, I have to tell you about the Warsaw edition. Now, you guys know what the Warsaw edition looks like, but probably none of you have it. It looks like a Gemara. The text is all the way like a Gemara, all the way down the page. And on both sides, you have commentaries. Right? Text is not on top of the page. It's in the middle, like a Gemara. You've seen it, correct?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? You don't know?
Yeah, they're very hard to read.
Yeah.
Very unpleasant to read.
I'll tell you what's the advantage is he has the Masorah Gedola, Masorah Ketana, and that's why Reb Yaakov liked it, right? Again, I hope I could just let me see if it'll come out. I don't know if I'm doing it right or wrong.
Further back.
What?
Take it further back towards the Rav.
Wait, it was coming.
Yeah, the bottom of the page seems to be coming in.
Oh yeah, I don't know why it's not holding on.
It's because of the background blur. If you take the background blur off, then it won't happen.
Oh really?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
What do you mean? The background blur?
Because you've got the background set to be blurred, and it sees the Sefer as being background.
Oh, you told me that. How do I take it off the blur?
It's in the video settings. There's a pull down box of settings. And
I have the settings here. Is it more settings? More?
Probably, and then background.
On the left on the bottom. Do you see where it says video?
You don't need to go that far. Click the three dots on the top right of your face.
1 second. The three dots on the top
on the top right of your where you see your face.
1 second. It says recording, sign in, view. I don't see three dots.
The right-hand side of your screen.
Hold on. Yeah.
Next to mute.
The right-hand side of my screen next to mute.
Of your box where your face appears.
My what do you call it? My video and audio appear on the left side on the bottom.
Right. So open up video. and it says blur my background.
Oh, yeah. 1 second.
You see where it says blur my background?
1 second. Oh, wait. I see what you mean. Oh, yeah, you got it. So get rid of it, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh.
there you go. There you
That
go.
was easy. You're right.
Yeah.
You see
Yeah.
it? I'll
Yeah,
get a better page, maybe. Let me show you. You see how the text is in the middle, Mike? You ever see one like this?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't see it because they don't really reproduce it. But if you look in the middle column over here is the Masorah Ketana, Masorah Gedola, and Reb Yaakov loved that stuff, so he went for it. And this is called the Warsaw edition. And it's important that you know about this because it's going to be relevant soon. Okay? It's the Warsaw edition. And I have the Lublin edition. In both those editions, it says Bizman Abayit. Later editions, it doesn't say it anymore. The Ma'or edition, and then, of course, the Art Scroll edition, which is the latest, 10 years old, it's not there anymore. Because it was Bemet, a censor. Okay? So that's the idea that Reb Yaakov says over here. And now Reb Yaakov is going to go off on a tangent about things being censored. Okay? I have to tell you something that I was learning Gemara Sanhedrin. I was learning through Gemara Sanhedrin, and I think it's like Daf Mem Dalet. I don't remember. I didn't look it up. It's somewhere in the Daf Mems, probably Mem Beis, Mem Dalet. There's a Rashi there that doesn't have a Gemara. Okay, the Rashi doesn't have a Gemara. How can a Rashi? It's a Dibra Maschil, and there's no Gemara. So I was learning that Daf, and I happened to go visit Reb Yaakov. So I said, Sadie, there's a Rashi here, and I took out the Gemara, and I showed him that doesn't have a Gemara. So he starts to laugh. He laughs. So I said, what are you laughing about? He goes, wait a minute. He runs to his bookshelf, and he takes out a book. And in the book, there's another book. In other words, he takes out a book, and in the book, there's a soft-covered, like a small little book, like a booklet. Not even a book. It looked like about 30 pages, maybe less, 25 pages, inside another book. Okay? I don't remember the book it was inside. I wish I did, but I don't remember it. I wasn't Mesim Lev. And he takes out and he says, these are all the Chaserot in Shas. Okay? And these pages are all the things that are missing in Shas that we took out. We self-censored. But you buy this little book, which he bought in Lithuania, right? And then you have all the Gemaras that are censored. Okay? And he said, that's what it is. He said, and he showed me the Gemara. It's about Jesus and, the Romans and the Jews gave him over to the Romans and Romans gave him a mishpat and everything. And it talks about that over there. And it's missing from the Gemara. And I mentioned to you that our scroll never put it back, but Steinsaltz did put it back. So in all the Steinsaltz Gemaras there's nothing censored anymore. Okay? But in any event, so that's what Reb Yaakov said. He says, there's a lot of self-censoring going on historically because we were afraid of the Goyim, so we self-censored it. And if you look in Poskim, you'll also see it in Poskim as well. If I'm not mistaken, the Aruch HaShulchan does it a fair amount of times himself. Okay, so now let's go back to Reb Yaakov, page Taf Mem Ches. Kmo kein tevas mumar, he me'es cenzura b'mokem meshumit. Okay, when it says anywhere it says mumar, it should really say meshumad. Okay, v'lachein b'sefer HaChinuch mitzvah Yud Gimel b'otzos Rav Shevel shehu mevusas al tfus v'nitzia kasuv shelo nachil min haPesach liYisrael meshumad. It says over there in the Kota Road of this mitzvah, there's a nochri is not allowed to eat in it says kol ben nechar, right? Kol ben nechar. So the Gemara says, Rashi quotes it already, that Misha misnaker maaseu lavinu shabashamayim. So nachil, we shouldn't feed from the Pesach the Yisrael Meshumad, v'lo kamal tfusim arigilim shalanu shkosu me'emas hamalchus shalanachil min haPesach l'ovdei avodah zara. Okay, so I have a text like this that it says you shouldn't give the ovdei avodah zara, right? Because you don't want to say you're not allowed a non-Jew or a Jew that is a Meshumid. You don't want to say that. Okay, so ovdei avodah zara. Okay, but I checked the edition of I have the edition of Chevelle, which Reb Yaakov didn't have, by the way. He borrowed it from somebody. I'm sure he bought it from somebody. He didn't have that edition. But Chevelle put out a Mincha Chinuch. It's like a 1-volume, and he used Kitvei Yad to do it. So he has the real what it says. Okay. Okay, v'zeh muchach mitargum unkelus. Okay, this is proven from Targum Unkelus b'shmos Yud Beis Mem Gimel Kol ben nechar lo yochal bo. Okay, shetir game Kol bar Yisrael dishtamed lo yechal be. Okay, it says Kol ben nechar, but we don't know what that means exactly. It could be a guy, right? Right? No. It says, because other places, oral is not allowed to eat either. But what's called benechar? So shetigam kol bar Yisrael d'ishtamid, that he became a meshumid lo yechelbo v'ayin sham b'Ramban. Okay, so Rashi says over there in Shmos, right? Let me just get the Rashi in Shmos. Now you have to check if in your Chumash it says that. Okay? In your Chumash, does it say when it quotes the Targum, does he quote the Targum like this? Okay? So this is Mem Gimel. Here. Here. It says like this: Vayom Hashem el Moshe v'Aaron zochu kasapecha kol benecha leyochel bo. Okay, so Rashi says shenisnakru ma'asav laviv shebashamayim v'echad ovid kachom v'echad Yisrael mumar b'mashma, and benecha is including both. He was misnaker. His actions became far from God. So you have both the non-Jew and the Jew over here, right? Mumar. Rashi says over here, V'echad Yisrael Mumar. In brackets, in the Mar, it says Meshumad, right? B'mashma. Okay? So Reb Yaakov is saying basically, whenever you see the word Mumar, it should have been a Meshumad. Okay? V'kanareh shehu meloshen hashmada. Okay, not clear exactly what this means. That to destruction, right? So you could either learn that Mushumid means he destroyed his relationship with God, or he destroyed his Olam Haba. There's different ways you can learn it, but you've heard of the term a Mushumid, right? A Mushumad. Okay, v'chein mekublani shenusach birchas haminim shetiknu Shmuel Hakatan. Right? We have Lamalshinim, right? We say Lamalshinim al Tikva. Rabbi Yaakov says originally when Shmuel HaKatan was metakin the bracha for the Brichas Haminim, he added a 19th bracha, right? It said Lamashumadim al Tikva. V'chlifu ovdei hatzensura shebeikar ha-Yehudim mishumadim. Okay, the people who were involved in the censoring, okay, who were beikar Yisrael Yehudim mishumadim. Okay, what does that mean? These were Jews that converted, right? And they're the ones who were in charge of censoring, meaning against our will too. Sometimes they just censored it. They didn't want to curse themselves. You can't say we're Meshumadim. So what do you mean we're going to put in Mishumadim. So they changed it to Mamalshinim.
They're
Right?
Meshumadim, but they believe in the Koch HaTfilah to be Mekalav.
That's what it sounds like. They didn't want to. They didn't want to have that klala. So they were like, half baked Jews, but they had a certain fear of that, right? So he says that they changed it. Okay. And my grandfather used to daven.
The footnote said that Rabbi Yaakov would say Meshumadim.
Who says that?
The footnote
Right.
642 says.
And of course, in the footnote, he quotes me, right? V'chein neched Rabbeinu Rav Yitzchak Shurin Shlita shel Rabbeinu Ovar lefnei hateva b'yeshiva mesuyemes here in New York, right? Shamakorius mo'orachos ba. I don't know what that means. Shamakorius mo'orachos mo'orachos ba. I don't know what he means over here. But it was in Chaim Berlin. Okay, and he asked me to ask the mashgiach. He had yahrzeit, and he didn't want to daven in a balabata shul, right? Because he was afraid that he davens too slowly. But he knew in a yeshiva he doesn't daven too slowly for the yeshiva. So I asked the mashgiach permission. The mashgiach said it would be the biggest covet for Reb Yaakov to be the shots. So I spoke to Reb Yaakov, and he came over to Chaim Berlin. He was in Flatbush, and he was the shots. And I remember everybody sat with a sitter to see what Reb Yaakov, how he pronounces the words. Everybody sat with a sitter because Rav Hutner was not mocked on those things, but Reb Yaakov was very mocked. So they wanted to see how he pronounces the words. And there he said in the Chazoros Hashatz, he said, V'amushumadim, al sikfa, right? And the rest, by the way, the rest.
He said that whole nusach that's in the
correct. It's in the Vilna Siddur. He's right. They give you an option over there, right? He said that whole bracha at the end. It doesn't say it by us, but that's the way it says. If you want to see how it is, and if I'm not mistaken, I found it in the Gaonic period. They already were saying l'mashumadim.
They'll forget about Shurin. That's the nosach of that's nosach Teiman.
Oh, they say l'mashumadim?
Yeah.
Okay. You see that they had the old nusach, right? That we change, right? Ubashar makom shedanim b'din mishumadim echlifa lemilas mumar meloshin v'lo yomir es tov bara o ra b'tov she'ein laze mashmut shlilit muchachas ki yachol lios shemeimer ra b'tov. In other words, mumar was more parav, and therefore the censors censored mishumadim to mumarim, right? That's what he says over here. Okay, now let's go on to page 3, and then we'll come back. Okay, so on page 3, you see I underlined it. You see where it starts? Page 3. This is on Chumash. Okay, so it says over there. Where did I start it from? Hashem Meshumad Ragil? Yes? You see that where it's underlined? Hashem Meshumad Ragil B'chol Makom Lomar Al Mumar B'divrei Rishonim. In other words, and the Shem Meshumad is customary or regular, right? From the word Ragil, regular in every place to say Al Mumar B'divrei Rishonim, meaning in place of the first things, you say mumar.
Sorry, Rosh Shurin, I have an old edition of Emes Yaakov, and I didn't print out that sheet. What pasuk is that on?
Oh, that's a good point. It's hold on. I think it's Yud Beis Mem Gimel. Check it out. And the paragraph that starts Gam Mashakasav Ramban. It's on that pasuk where it deals with the Kol Benecha. You see it?
Got it.
Okay, so it says,
What pasuk
what?
Yud
Beis Mem Gimel, I think it is, right?
By me, it's page Resh Pei Hey.
In the old
Right.
one.
In the old edition.
In the new
Okay.
edition, Shin Mem Hey, what I have here, right? So it says like this: Ela dikanere mishum sholem malchus shinu l'shem mumar. Okay, in other words, in the mishum, it is the right word, right? In every place, right? In the original copies of everything, but they changed it because of Shlom Malchus. Shumiloshen Tmura, Shulufamim Ra, Betov, Tov Ra. Vamatpisim, Shinu Hai Dishtamid al Distalek. Okay, now if you take a look in Sefer Shmos, where you are, Yud Beis, right? So the Reb Yaakov quoted that the Targum over there, right? And the Targum said, right over there, here, Vayomar Shema, okay, here, Kol Bar Yisrael Dishtamet Lo Yechol Bo, Lo Yechol Be, okay? Any Bar Yisrael Dishtamet should not eat in it. So in other words, what Rashi already quoted, it's in the Targum, okay? The Targum writes it, okay? Bar Yisrael Dishtamet, okay? Now, here. Okay. Now, if you look at the edition of the edition of the Warsaw edition, like I showed you before, on Chumash, not on Tanach, on Chumash, it says not the Ishtamet, the Stalik. Okay. Listalik means to move up. Lahanach to moridam osam. For those, the ones that we bring them down, right? Moridanoto. V'amatikim mitfusim shonim lo ra'uv lo avinu et ashalifnei v'itiku distalik. And many of the people who printed Chumashim afterwards didn't see and didn't understand what was before them, and they just wrote the Targum Onkelos distalik and not the Ishtamit. V'shamati me'arav ha'chochem Reb Meshulam Fishel Ber. Now take a look what he calls him. Harav ha'chochem. Why? Because Fishel Ber was a Jew who knew Chochmas Yisrael. He was like a little bit of a from Moscow. Okay? So he was a from guy, 100%. And Reb Yaakov says, I heard from Meshulam official, his name was Meshulam Fishel Ber, Meshulam Fishel Ber. Merisain, that's where he lived. Shamagia mitfus varsha shal mikros gedolos heimir dasobo so shana shenigmarat fosses mikros gedolos hanal. He said that the one who looked over the Warsaw edition, right? Reb Meshulam Fishel Ber told Reb Yaakov, he became a Meshumad. That year, he was Yotzel Tabris Ra, and he was changed his religion. But also Shana Shlimad Fosses Mikros Gedolos Anar. For who Bemes Tik Tistalik, and he's the one who changed it to Shtamet to Istalik, and because he was in charge of the editing of that Chumash. So Fishel Ber told Reb Yaakov that the guy, and now Reb Yaakov began to understand why it was changed, right? Why it was changed from a Shumat to Stalik. Ramban Shoyakosov Dishtamid. What does this mean? In Reb Yaakov's Chumash, it said Distalik. And then he looked at the Ramban, and the Ramban quotes the Targum, Dishtamid. So Reb Yaakov didn't know what to do. So Reb Fishel Ber, who used to come to Tzitavyan, he lived in a big city, Rasain. He used to come to Tzitavyan, like the country, like the Catskills, in the summer. So Reb Yaakov used to sit in shmuz with him, and they started shmuzing about this. Reb Yaakov told, he started shmuzing about this Targum. So Reb Fishel Ber said, I know for a fact that the fellow who edited it, he was a Meshumid, and therefore, Reb Yaakov said, oh, now I understand. The Ramban quotes it correctly, the Targum Onkelos, and then the guy changed it. Okay? And by the way, there are people who still, right? I'll show you something. I'm going to laugh because who was more of a scholar in this area than Chevelle? Chevelle was he sat in his seat for 12 hours a day, with different kisvei yad, studying them, right? He did it on the Ramban, Rabbeinu Bechaya, on Rashi. The man just did it his whole life. So he writes like this, where the Ramban says, here, and Chumash, I'm reading from the Chevelle edition, V'chein Targum Onkelos, Kol Bar Yisrael Dishtamid, okay, Sha'itnaker L'chiv L'viv Shashamayim B'maisa Haroy. Okay, Ramban. And he writes in a footnote, Onkelos Distalik. And he doesn't comment on it. He says that our Onkelos says Distalik. That's another girsa. So he should have right away have chapped. He's a scholar. He should have chapped that that's a censor. He shouldn't even have quoted. He should have said, it says in that edition, but it's an incorrect thing, like Reb Yaakov says. But he doesn't say anything. He says in our Chumash says this stuff. Now the truth is that once the Chumash that Esther got for her graduation, it says they're Stalin, right? But once we started redoing the Chumash again, the Ma'or Chumash already says like the Ramban, the Shtamid, right? So Reb Yaakov says over here that in other words, the reason why within Chumash you'll find things like this because the fellow was Heimer Dasso, right? By the way, official bear was Reb Yaakov's. He was Reb Yaakov's what do you call Perry shown from Rishon Salanter. In other words, Reb Yishol Salanter used to stay in his father's house when they were kids. Reb Yishol Salanter used to stay by Reb Elia Ber. If you look at Truas HaMusar, that was one of the homes he stayed in when he was going from Germany to Lithuania. He would stay by Reb Elia Ber. So, of course, everything Reb Yishol Ber knew about Reb Yishol Salanter, he actually saw. So Reb Yaakov squeezed him to death. I know Imam she squeezed him dry about Reb Yishol Salanter because what he knew about Reb Yishol Salanter was from the Alter of Slobodka, right? Who didn't come in contact with Reb Yishol Salanter so many times, very little times. But this guy, he was a kid in the house where Reb Yishol Salanter stayed there for days. So of course he was able to tell him stories. So a lot of Reb Yaakov's stories came from Official Bear, and he also got to hear twice. I think he got to hear Rev Naftali Amsterdam, a Talmud of Rabbi Yishol Salanter, and Slobodka. He used to come and speak on Purim and Hoshana Rabbah. He'd speak on Rabbi Yisrael, and he used to say, "The stories I'm about to tell you about Rabbi Yisrael, I saw him do it, and therefore I'm telling you over, or I heard these stories from Rabbi Yishol Salanter himself." That's what he used to say over. So Reb Yaakov had the Per Rishon from Reb Naftali Amsterdam and Reb Yishol Ber. This was the fellow of Yishol Ber. Okay.
Where do we know that you mentioned he's from Moscow? Where do we hear that he's a Moscow?
Okay, so if you take a look at his sefer, I have the sefer that he published. He gave Reb Yaakov a copy. I have an edition I photocopied. Okay. It's like this. I did it in Moser of Cook, right? I want to tell you, Reb Yaakov said to me, I said to Reb Yaakov, when he used to tell me official buy, I said, give me a sefer. I'd like to look it over. He says, somebody borrowed it and they didn't give it back. So I said to Reb Yaakov, okay, I'll go get it back. He says, no, I'm not telling you who it is. He says, it's already by the Yarshim because the fellow died. So it's probably by the Yarshim. So I said, what? It's your sefer. I'm not telling you. Okay. So I was in America at the time, right? But I got to Israel. I started researching it. And I found in Moser of Cook, and of course, the Hebrew University has a few copies. Whose copy was this? Me'otza Sfarim Shel Yehuda Leib HaKoyin Maimon Fishman Yerushalayim. The one who started Moser of Cook, he gave his library, which was huge, to Moser of Cook. Okay, and here's a stamp. He was a Kohen, so he has a stamp like this with the hands, right? He has a stamp over here, right? Oh, look at this. And he has what it says on the Sefer. He got a present. He got this as a present from Fischl Bear. Because what did he do? You know that Yehuda Leib Bible went throughout Eretz Yisrael trying to convince everyone to make Aliyah. He was a Fabrenta Zionist, right? So, of course, where did he go? He went to Rasein. It's a big city. And he spoke there and he tried to get people. And it says over here, Bechir HaSefer Mugdash Kulo L'Talmud Torah Beit HaSefer Yavne to Rasein. Okay? Because he was a wealthy guy. He didn't take any money he got. He gave it right away for tzedakah for the Talmud Torah. Yavne of Rasein. Okay? So that was in the front page copy. So I also copied that, besides the Sefer itself. Right? But if you look in the Sefer, here it says, Kobitz by Morim Va'oris, Tanach, Talmud, V'Safrus Sha'achara Talmud, B'Shulam Fischl Ber de Rasein, Medinas Lita. Okay? And if you look in the Sefer, you see that he was a maskil. What does that mean? He has ha'oris on Gretz, right? He has Gretz is right. Of course, he has ha'oris showing that he's wrong, and he has ha'oris on Tanach and history. Okay? Reb Yaakov told me, I'll just leave you with a story. Reb Yaakov, then we'll go on. Reb Yaakov said that he spoke to Fischl Ber about what happened in Rasein with the Soloveitchiks. Okay? Rav Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik, the Rav, his father needed a position. And the position became free. And the fellow who passed away was a gigantic Rav. He was a Talmud Chaver of Bishol Salanter, a huge Talmud Chacham. And Reb Chaim said it would be a great rabbanis for Moshe Soloveitchik, my son. And he was quite young at the time. So Reb Chaim told Reb Baruch Ber to go to Rasein for Shabbos and speak about that Moshe Soloveitchik his son has to become the Rav in Rasein. So Reb Baruch Ber went because Reb Chaim was his Rebbe, so he went to Rasein, right? He was already a Rosh Hashiva, but he went to Rasein for Shabbos. Of course, they were Machabed him. Reb Baruch Ber was considered a big Lamdin in Lithuania, so they were Machabed him. And he spoke, and he said, I have a Rav for you. I know you. Alexander Moshe Lapidus was the name of the Rav before. Check it out in the Tuas HaMusar. It's quoted. His name is quoted. He was a huge Talmud Chacham, Alexander Moshe Lapidus, like from the older years already, from time of Bishol Salanter. So when he came to Rasein, of course, Fischl Ber was one of the Chashuva Balabatim in Rasein. He had to convince him, amongst other Balabatim, to take Rav Moshe. So Baruch Ber said by a Kiddush, right? He said, I just want you to know, I have a Rav for you. Any difficult Rambam in all of Yad HaChazaka, he can answer. So Fischl Ber stood up and he said, that's pretty good, but who says he has to answer it in Rasein? Let him answer it in Brisk. That's what he says to him. Who says he has to answer the Rambams in Rasein? Let him answer it in Brisk. That's what he said. And he told it to Reb Yaakov. He told I was against it. He was too young. I was against it. Anyway, so you know what Reb Chaim decided? Reb Chaim is coming to Rasein for Shabbos. Okay? Now with Reb Chaim, it was a lot scarier. He was considered the biggest lamd in all of Lithuania, hands down. Okay? It was scary. So Reb Chaim came to speak about his son. And of course, you can't say to Reb Chaim, let your son answer it in Brisk. Reb Chaim was Reb Baruch Ber's Rebbe. He was a much older person already. So what happened was, he invited afterwards. Fischl Ber wanted to schmooze for Reb Chaim, and he invited him to his house for Kiddush. He had a Kiddush. They made a separate Kiddush, but he invited him for like a Kiddush and a meal by his house. And he was considered one of the Chashuv Balabatim. He was I said Chacham b'Chachmas Yisrael, but he was a Talmud Chacham. So Reb Chaim is sitting there, and he says, I want to discuss something with you. The Halachas Gedola, the Bahag, nobody exactly knows who he is. And I have a cheshbon who he is. I'm not going to go into it right now, but he writes it in his Sefer. That's what I'm telling you. It's Chachmas Yisrael. Lamdin's not interested who the Bahag was, right? And try to prove it historically. But these are the types of things he writes about. He writes about very interesting things, like more what Reb Yaakov called, you have to make a Berachas HaTorah, but it's Chachmas Yisrael. Okay? So he asks Reb Chaim certain questions on the Bahag to try to prove, he's going to give an answer to try to prove who the Bahag was. So after he finishes the questions, he says, so I wanted to say, so Reb Chaim said, wait. First, I'm going to tell you what you want to say, and then I'm going to show you how you're wrong. And then I'm going to tell you what I think. Reb Fischelberg told it to Reb Yaakov, this whole story. And Reb Chaim told him exactly his answer. And then Reb Chaim disagreed on it with it and told him another approach to it. So Reb Yaakov said it was known that when you asked a question, Reb Chaim was able to figure out what your answer is going to be. From the way you asked your question, he was able already to figure out what your answer would be. And Reb Yaakov told me 2 other stories like it. That Reb Chaim said, first I'll give you your answer, I'll show you why it's so good, and then I'll give you my answer. So that was the story of Official Bear,
Wait, so Rav Chaim didn't persuade him to have Rav Moshe come to take the Rabbanan?
So he did. He did. Rav Moshe came, but after a short time he left. He really wasn't yet capable. He was too young to get capable for it. So he went to Chaslavich, and that's where he became a Rav, and he stayed as a Rav till he went to America. There he was very successful, and he stayed as the Rav there. Reb Chaim had big plans, so he put him in a place where he wasn't ready really for, which doesn't really work too well. Okay, anyway. But that's the story with Official Bear. Now let's go on page 2 again, at the end of page 2.
Rav Shurin, I just want to clarify something.
Yeah.
This whole long keta that you Xeroxed and put on the source sheet from Parshas Bo, I couldn't even find it in my edition. It's not there, right? It's like a
total. Oh, you mean it's not? It's even the whole thing about Official Bear is not there?
No, in my edition, it is. I have got, for me, it's on page Reish Pei Hey.
Oh, you
Reish
did
Pei Hey, and Official Bear is quoted there?
Yes.
Yeah, because Reb Yaakov has it as Ksav Yad. This is from the Ksav Yad. So I'm wondering.
Oh, because the.
Do you see it in Reish Pei Hey?
I don't see it at all.
My Hotzah is Tavshin Nun Vav.
No, but it doesn't matter. Till the last edition, they were all the same, I think. So you don't have it in Reish Pei Hey?
I do.
No.
You have it.
I don't. I don't know. It's something else. Something else regarding the Pesach. It doesn't even talk about this thing.
1 second. Reish Pei Hey. I have an old edition, so let me check. I may have Wayne's edition.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking. It's on.
Oh, it has it.
I'm sorry. On the previous page, I found it. Sorry.
Okay.
Never
That's
mind.
why Reb Yaakov calls him Harav HaChacham. He never says on a Rosh Yeshiva Rav. He says, a Rav, so-and-so, a Rav HaChacham, because he was around the Chachmas Yisrael, history, Digduk. He was a real mushlam.
But not a maskil.
Reb Yaakov used to call like the what was his name? The Maritz Chayes. Like he talked about broader things than just like a sugi in Masechet Gittin. You know what I mean? The Yeshiva Masechet. Okay. He was a broad mind. Like he spoke about the Bahag. Who's the Bahag? Who cares, right? But that's something in the university they would talk about. Who is the Bahag? Anyway, so if we go back to page 2 for a second, now comes another thing which we'll probably have to do more next week, but I just want to start it. On page 2 that I gave you, Taf Mem Ches at the bottom of the left column, in the Sefer. V'dova zeh shamila makoros hi meshumid kosafti biosi b'tzitavyan. Okay, I wrote this already when I was in Tzitavyan. Okay, and that's true. It's in its Svarim. That means he wrote it before 1936. Okay, La Rav Moshe. 1 second. Moshe, page 4, Shimon Zivit. Okay, I wrote this to Rav Moshe Shimon Zivitz. Who's Rav Moshe Shimon Zivitz? Bala Machaber Sefer HaMashbich al Yerushalmi. Hu Yilid Tzitavyan. He was born in Tzitavyan, this fellow, and he wrote a commentary, 2-volume commentary on the Yerushalmi. So listen to this. I just want to give you background. He was born in 1855. Okay? 1855. So Reb Yaakov was born in 1891. So he was born in Tzitavyan 40 years before Reb Yaakov was born. Forget about that he was rabbi in Tzitavyan. 40 years before Reb Yaakov was born, he was born in Tzitavyan. By the time Reb Yaakov was born, he was already in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Rav in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in 1885. He was a Rav in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Okay, he lived the rest of his life in Pittsburgh. Maybe in one other place also. I don't remember, maybe in New Jersey too, but in Pittsburgh he lived most of the time. Okay, you lived. V'lachein sholach li et sifro bikesh menu la'ir ha'oris al sifro. Avlo haya li Yerushalmi. But I didn't have a Yerushalmi in Tzitavyan. Okay, here's the Rav of Tzitavyan who doesn't have a Yerushalmi. Now he puts in the Ha'ara, okay, 644. Rabbeinu tzachak v'amar shebekoshi hayalo Talmud Bavli. I don't know. Remember if I had a whole Talmud Bavli there in Tzitavyan. Forget about Yerushalmi. I didn't know the Yerushalmi. Could you imagine? Today the bar mitzvah boy has three sets of each. Okay, bar mitzvah boy has it, right? He was Reb Yaakov, the Rav of Tzitavyan, didn't have any Yerushalmi, period. So the guy writes him a letter, sends him his sefer from America to Tzitavyan, and he gets the sefer, and he tells him to write Aris, and Reb Yaakov doesn't have a Yerushalmi. Okay, guys, we'll take this up next week already.